word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
The President of the United States is dead.
In the electric air of Dallas, Texas, November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy rides in a Lincoln convertible, top down, embraced by a fervent crowd filled with hope and excitement. But little do they know, these exhilarating moments are about to take an unexpected turn. For Kennedy, this isn't just a routine ride through the city. He's facing a powerful establishment, determined to challenge his every move. Yet he stands tall, unyielding in his principles, even in the face of impending danger. Kennedy left a legacy of defying the odds and fought back against the forces that sought to silence him. He was a leader like no other, leaving a profound mark of courage and sacrifice echoing through history. Born on May 29, 1917, in the prestigious city of Brooklyn, Massachusetts, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, affectionately known as Jack, was born into two prestigious Catholic Boston families, the Kennedys and the Fitzgeralds. His parental grandfather, P.J. Kennedy, a wealthy banker and shrewd liquor trader, and his maternal grandfather, the esteemed John E. Fitzgerald, set the stage for a life of influence and affluence. But the true architect of young Kennedy's path was his father, Joseph Joe Kennedy Sr., a master of both finance and politics. Joe made sure all 9 of his children were raised in an environment where excellence was the norm and ambition was instilled. John was the second oldest in a tight-knit and fiercely competitive family. Among his siblings were icons like Robert and Ted Kennedy, both destined to leave their mark on American history. Naturally, John inherited a competitive spirit that demanded nothing but first place. Under the watchful eye of his father, the young Kennedy learned that winning was everything, driving him to despise the taste of defeat. Despite his father's relentless pursuit of excellence, Kennedy's academic performance was average. He was a mischievous and a poor student, preferring sports, girls, and practical jokes over coursework. Yet, hidden beneath his youthful antics was a bookish mind, engrossed in refined literature. Venturing into higher education, Kennedy's brilliance shined through occasionally, yet he remained a middling student, drawn by the allure of sports and the company of women. His charisma and radiant smile made him the heart of popularity among his peers at Harvard University. However, this carefree attitude also paved the way for his incorrigible womanizer reputation, as he lived life with a sense of freedom that led him down diverse paths. In his final year at college, Kennedy's dedication to his studies grew, and he embarked on an extended research project while his father served as ambassador to Great Britain. Focused on Britain's unpreparedness in World War II, his incisive analysis led to a successful book titled Why England Slept, selling over 80,000 copies. Proud of his son's achievement, Kennedy's father sent him a heartwarming cablegram, recognizing both his intelligence and character. After graduating from Harvard, Kennedy eagerly joined the U.S. Navy, commanding a patrol torpedo boat in the South Pacific. One fateful day, PT-109 was rammed by a Japanese warship, leaving 2 sailors dead and Kennedy with a severe back injury. Displaying immense bravery, he guided the survivors to safety on a nearby island and earned honors for his heroism. Tragically, Kennedy's older brother, Joe Jr., also in the Navy, lost his life in a plane explosion in August 1944. Endowed with charm, athleticism, intelligence, and ambition, Joe Jr. was once seen as the future potential president. Following his brother's untimely death, Kennedy embraced his family's dreams and aspirations on his own. At 29, after returning from service, Kennedy launched his bid for the U.S. House of Representatives from a blue-collar district in Boston. Bolstered by his war hero status, family ties, and his father's financial booking, he secured an easy victory. Yet the initial excitement gave way to frustration as he found the work in Congress lackluster. Despite serving 3 terms from 1946 to 1952, Kennedy felt constrained by stifling rules, limiting the impact of young representatives like himself. He'd state, "We were just worms in the House," he lamented, convinced that they went unnoticed on the national stage. In 1952, John F. Kennedy launched an innovative Senate campaign backed by his father's resources and guided his brother Robert as campaign manager. Despite a Republican-dominated Congress, his charisma and intelligence secured a narrow victory over incumbent Henry Cabot Lodge. Shortly after his election, Kennedy married Jacqueline Bouvier on September 12, 1953, and they had 3 children, Caroline, John Jr., and Patrick Kennedy. Despite frequent illnesses, he remained active, winning the Pulitzer Prize-winning book Profiles in Courage during his Senate career. Driven by international challenges and the Cold War, Kennedy aimed for more significant roles, nearly becoming Adlai Stevenson's running mate in 1956. 4 years later, he made the momentous decision to run for president. In the 1960 Democratic primaries, Kennedy outmaneuvered his main opponent, Hubert Humphrey, with superior organization and financial resources. As his father, Joe Kennedy, famously stated, "I will spend every dollar to get my son elected." Selecting Senate Majority Leader Lyndon B. Johnson as his running mate, Kennedy faced Vice President Richard Nixon in the general election. The election turned largely on a series of televised national debates, where Kennedy's relaxed and vigorous demeanor contrasted sharply with Nixon's pallid and tense appearance, ultimately giving him the edge. On November 8, 1960, Kennedy narrowly defeated Nixon, becoming the 35th President of the United States. Kennedy's election was historic in several respects. At 43, he was the second youngest American president in history, the first Catholic president, and the firstborn in the 20th century. In his iconic inaugural address on January 20, 1961, Kennedy aimed to ignite a spirit of active citizenship among all Americans, urging them with the powerful words, "Ask not what your country can do for you.
Ask what you can do for your country."
As president, Kennedy's strong stances on government and the Cold War made him a major target, leading to his tragic assassination. As the Eisenhower administration neared its end, the CIA's director wanted to overthrow Castro soon after he took power in 1959. However, with Eisenhower's term winding down, he hesitated to make any major moves. When Kennedy became president, he had concerns about the CIA's power and secrecy. In the early months of his presidency, the CIA convinced him to approve the Bay of Pigs invasion, aiming to remove Castro from Cuba. But the mission's failure made Kennedy look bad in the eyes of the American people, reinforcing his skepticism towards the CIA. He famously declared, "I'm going to splinter the CIA in 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the winds." Kennedy ordered a reorganization of the CIA, which they did not appreciate. During the 1960 election, the Kennedy family used their connections to the American Mafia, seeking aid to secure victory in Illinois. In return, the family promised the Mafia's activities would be overlooked once John took office. However, things took a surprising turn when John appointed his brother Robert "Bobby" Kennedy as the U.S. Attorney General, and he started pursuing the Mafia instead. This included taking on powerful mobsters like Anthony "Tony Ducks" Carello, Carmine Galante, John Ormento, Frankie Carbo, Frank "Blinky" Palermo, Alfred Sika, Joe Gallo, and even Teamster leader Jimmy Hoffa. The Kennedy brothers' actions left the underworld seething with bitterness. Kennedy was wary of the Federal Reserve, thinking it held too much power without being accountable to the American people. On June 4, 1963, he issued Executive Order 1110, a daring move that significantly impacted the reserve. The order allowed the Secretary of the Treasury to issue silver certificates, which meant the Federal Reserve was no longer the sole issuer of currency in the United States. This move reduced the Federal Reserve's power, increased the Secretary of Treasury's influence, and sparked uncertainty about the future, leading to speculation about the gold standard. Prior to leaving office, Eisenhower warned the American people of the military-industrial complex.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals.
Kennedy, sharing the same critical beliefs, wanted to limit its influence, ensuring that the military wouldn't be used for political or economic gain. He constantly disagreed with his advisors about the Vietnam War, being hesitant to get involved. Eventually, he sent military advisors to South Vietnam, but he remained opposed to sending combat troops. His goal was to end the war without escalating American involvement. Kennedy and his Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson had a tense rivalry fueled by jealousy and ambition. While Kennedy was charming and charismatic, he didn't initially seek the presidency. It was more his father's dream. On the other hand, Johnson had a strong desire for the highest office. Their differences created frequent clashes of handling situations. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Soviets placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, and Kennedy approached the situation cautiously. However, Johnson favored a more aggressive approach. In the Vietnam War, Kennedy authorized military advisors but not combat troops. On the contrary, Johnson escalated the war by sending combat troops, leading to a decade-long conflict. Regarding oil companies, Kennedy wanted more effective regulation, believing they were too powerful and unaccountable to the American people. His brother Robert Kennedy used the Department of Justice to investigate anti-competitive practices, leading to a significant antitrust settlement that forced the companies to change their strategies. As a Texan, Johnson had close ties to oil companies, which influenced his approach differently. During the Cold War, Kennedy faced a critical moment during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The National Security Advisor urged him to bomb Cuba and retaliate fiercely against the USSR. However, on June 10, 1963, Kennedy's speech at American University marked a significant shift from the typical Cold War rhetoric. In his speech, he called for a re-examination of attitudes, which helped reduce tensions and led to a ban against nuclear testing. Additionally, he proposed a joint space program. All these decisions infuriated the military and intelligence agencies.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade in downtown Dallas. From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
Among the various theories surrounding Kennedy's assassination, one truth remains. During the Cold War's turmoil, John F. Kennedy's unwavering pursuit of peace and joint space collaboration showcased unmatched courage and dedication. His legacy of resilience and hope endures, even in the face of adversity. Born into prestige, Kennedy, against all expectations, fearlessly confronting challenges from the CIA, Mafia, and Federal Reserve, championing peace and reducing tensions. His legacy inspires courage, urging us to embrace unwavering beliefs and forge a better future.